to get back to the Changla Ridge where we were there, my unit had 9 OP officers. They were all deployed in various locations from the opposite the Thagla Ridge to the general area of Bumla.
Sir, come again, sir. Sir, come again. So you were not.
I had my unit had 9 OP officers, artillery OP officers, and they were deployed from the west on the Indo-Bhutan border to Bumla on the right, the east in the Bumla sector, and to the west in the Kinzemane sector, somewhere on the tri-junction of India, Bhutan, and in
sir,
fact, one of
Kinzemane, when you were saying that is not tri-junction, is the Namkachu corner around the section of the lake.
Yes, just slightly above Sangle. Sangle is very close to the India, Bhutan, and Tibet border. So it's somewhere in that area.
So your OP officers were in the Sangle area also, or they were the Kinzemane?
Yeah, they were generally in all those areas. I'm not going to give out the specific locations, but they were there. 3 of them were located in the Kyapo Ridge, which was there. 3 of them were located in the Kyapo Ridge, and one of them was directly face to face with the Chinese on a daily basis. In fact, we used to joke, he says, "Mera to unke saath roz ka utna baithna hai." The Chinese and our troops were just separated by a barbed wire.
Sir, please, just I want to clarify this a little logically. Sir, you are saying that Wangdong pastures was north of Sumdorong-chu.
Yes.
Now, you were sitting on Kyapo Ridge, which is south of Sumdorong-chu on the height, that's the Longrola Pass.
Yes.
Now, when you go down from Longrola Pass, you will have to cross then Sumdorong-chu to go to Wangdong. Then how were they face to face with Chinese? They were at Wangdong.
No, they had come down. You see, there is a small ledge which links the Kyapo Ridge with Wangdong camp, and some of their assets had crossed the Sumdorong-chu into the Kyapo Ridge area.
Okay, so, they had crossed Sumdorong-chu and
they had crossed over some this thing and all. So we had to prevent them. It was like a LC situation. They were face to face with them. I met the Chinese there, face to face with them. And they had even made a helipad for use by Mi-6 helicopters. They had Mi-6 helicopters. They used to come every morning and every evening to try and tease us. They had even brought women volleyball players, tall women, good-looking women volleyball players who used to be playing volleyball on north of the Sumdorong-chu every evening to try and tease us. But that was okay. That is all part of the Sai war, this thing and all. But we were basically in a horseshoe at Lambrula feature or Kyapo Ridge feature with one OP on the left, one in the center bank face to face with the Chinese, and one on the right. Now, these were the defenses when we had contained the Chinese. We were about 3 to 5 kilometers behind. My guns, the regiment, artillery guns, were about 3 to 5 kilometers from the Kyapo Ridge.
From 3 to 5 kilometers?
3 to 5 kilometers, depending on the lie of the border, lie of the McMahon line. So, we were able to thus engage not only the Chinese at Wangdong, but we could engage them well beyond into the interiors, into the hinterland. Okay. Now, let me just tell you the significance of the Changla Ridge, why the Chinese had come to Changla Ridge. See, the biggest advantage is that the historical fact is that in 1959, when the current Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, came through from Tibet, he had come through Lipo, Li, Kinzemane, and then from there he had come down to Lumpo and taken a left hook from there along Wangdung to Sungetsa, and then from there he had climbed up to Nakyo, to Pakatongso, and on to Tawang. Now this is...
He came through Kinzemane, came to the Chuthangmo, right? Chuthangmo village.
Kinzemane, he came down to Lumpo. From Lumpo, there is a lateral track which comes from Wangdung to Sungetsa Lake. And Sungetsa onward, you climb up towards Nakyo, and onto, you come down to what is known as Y Junction, and then Pangatangso, and then you are into Tawang. Now this is the shortest route from the Chinese side to Tawang.
The Milak Tongla route.
Yeah.
Milak Tongla Pass.
The other two routes are via Kinzimane and the other is via Bumla. Now in mountains, as you would know, that the distances are measured in days, hours and days, and not in kilometers. So by taking this straight route, they achieved two, three things. They split the defenses of 5 mountain division between the ones at Kinzimane and the one at Bumla. And they were able to pose a threat to the direct threat to our value objective, that is Tawang. So that was the reason. And the third was to see how we would react. Now with Sundarji, Rajiv Gandhi and Arun Singh, everybody working together as a team, this reaction was spontaneous. Like I told you, the helicopters were provided and they were moved.
So this part your voice broke a little. So this part your voice broke a little. So this is a very important thing which you mentioned. Can you care to repeat it, sir? This part was very important. I think readers missed out. Voice broke a little. Can you repeat it, sir?
See, the reason why the Chinese came to Wangdung was, to Sumdorong-chu, was that first and foremost, they posed a direct threat to the Tawang monastery, to the Tawang township. This was the shortest and the direct route. Second thing was, it split the defenses of 5 days between the ones, the troops deployed in Kinzimane and the troops deployed in Bumla, because one Bumla is here, Kinzimane is here, Changla is here, you're straight away, like I'm sitting in between, you're attacking me. And once I am taken care of, behind me is Tawang, and you can go straight there. Second thing was that after capturing this area, the troops in Kinzimane would become redundant. They could be easily bypassed or contained there. And they could take no further part in the battle. Third one was that they wanted to see our reaction, how we are going to react. It was one of the earliest instances of Islamic slicing, what we call today. And we reacted as explained to you, by sending helicopters to position our troops there. We had created a helipad at Langrula behind the pass, on our side of the pass, so that they could not see.
Which pass, sir? Our side of which pass?
Langrula Pass. Okay, so that they could not see the number of sorties that landed or took off, because the number of sorties will give you the indication of the number of troops who are coming in.
So you had okay from the highest quarters, from political government quarters down the line, right?
Yes. See, at that stage, I was just a major. I wouldn't know what was happening at the national level. But now, with the help of hindsight and the inputs from various sources, one is aware of what has happened. But I know this much, that the decision making was very strict. We were given, the only thing was that we were not given the option to retaliate till cleared from higher headquarters.
From which level, sir? It had to be cleared from which level?
No, till cleared from the higher level. Now, for us, the higher level was our immediate boss. But for the GOC, it would be the corps commander, the army commander, and the army chief, and the prime minister. Why I'm mentioning this here is that I would like to bring to your viewers' notice an incident in which the Chinese tried to bypass one of the 3 positions which are occupied by 12 Assam. And when they tried to bypass, our OP officer, who was sitting there, Captain Raghbir Singh from my unit.
So who was OP officer?
Captain Raghbir Singh was our unit OP officer, was the OP officer from my unit.
Captain Raghbir Singh. Raghbir Singh.
Captain Raghbir Singh. He was the OP officer with the company of 12 Assam, which was sitting there. And he could see the Chinese forming up and trying to bypass them.
He was at the center. Out of the 3 OP officers, he was at the center.
No, he was not on the center. He was on the right.
On the right.
The center OP was Captain Yadav, who is now retired, and he is working with the GCA in Abu Dhabi in UAE government, Captain Narendra Yadav. And further on the left was Captain Manjeet. These are the three OP officers: Captain Manjeet Bullar, who is now retired and stays in Vasant Kunj. Center one was Yadav, Captain Yadav, and the right one was Captain Raghbir. Unfortunately, Captain Raghbir is no more with us. He's passed away many years ago. But Captain Raghbir was the one, and he asked for the fire of artillery fire onto the Chinese. Now, I was the 2IC. I was in a dilemma. Had I allowed the fire to go through, I could have probably started a small mini war or border incident. I could have even got sacked for it, which obviously would have been logical. Because I was starting a war between two this thing. But the fact was, what came to my defense was that there was no hostility between China and India at that time. There was no declared hostility. We were in a state of hostility. But that doesn't mean that you open up. Even though it may have amounted to self-defense, but I could not allow the fire to go through. And we had a little powwow on the phone. He said, "Sir, why aren't you opening fire?" I said, "I'm waiting for permission from higher headquarters." And I meanwhile spoke to my CO who was in Tawang, and he was waiting for clearance from higher headquarters in Tezpur. And Tezpur was waiting for clearance from Calcutta, and Calcutta was waiting for clearance from New Delhi. Anyway, to cut the long story short, after half an hour, we were told that you don't have to fire, but we will open up with medium machine guns.
Wow.
So,
means that 12 Assam company will open.
12 Assam companies which had medium machine guns deployed along with that company.
Sir, do you remember which company, the company number?
I would not remember the company, whether it was Alpha Company or Bravo. I remember the center company was Delta Company. No, I don't remember which is the right Delta Company. I don't remember whether the right company was Alpha or Bravo or Charlie, or the left company was what was Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. But I remember the center company was Delta because I'd been into them. And they opened up.
Wow.
This right company opened up with MMG fire.
Wow.
First, they spoke to them in Chinese to stop. But when they didn't, then they opened fire in the air over their heads.
Which date was this, sir? Which date?
Date I would not remember, but it was sometime in September.
September. Sir, let me bring it to the notice of our viewers. You see, a lot of people say that after 1975, there have been no exchange of fire on the LSE anywhere with China. But what you are saying, this establishes there in fact was the last exchange of, not exchange, one-sided fire was from Indian MMGs from 12 Assam on the Kyarpur range in September 1986. Wow.
Yes, September or maybe October. I can check up from the date because the adjutant of the battalion is in touch with me, 12 Assam. Captain Jai Shankar, I'm in touch with him. He's settled in Bangalore. So we opened up with our MMG fire, and the fire lasted about 15 minutes.
So Jai Shankar was the CO, 12 Assam.
He was the adjutant of 12 Assam. CO was Colonel Antal, Jerry Antal. So the Chinese are very upset about it. They stopped and they ran back to their positions. They had not expected. And we kept firing till they did not disappear behind their own positions, their own defenses. So that upset them very much. And then there was a flag meeting and all those things.
So they had come to the south of Sumdorong-chu and trying to climb up. They
were trying to bypass that company. You know, it's a routine operational action to try and, to pinprick the defenses, to find out their layout, to find out their response, to try and capture something. These are standard procedures on both sides.
So was this company the forward slopes of the...
You see, company, when it deploys tactically. It could be on a slope, it could be various tiers on a slope, it could be holding spurs. So it depends on what the layout of the ground is, because they have to be directly related to the ground. And the attacker has to climb up. So you have to deny those approaches which the attacker takes to reach your position. Because in the mountains, a person to develop his operations has to first clear the position which are held by the defender. If it does not clear the
visualize Chinese maneuver, there's a deep ridge, in the Longrola, to the right of Longrola, there's a deep ridge. I'm trying to wonder, whether they were trying to bypass through that ridge.
See, you are absolutely right. There is this deep trench. They were trying to utilize the deep trench to bypass the battalion defenses so that they could contact Langrula, which was the battalion headquarters directly. But our response with the MMGs gave them this thing, and we told them that now if you do advance further, we will respond with artillery fire.
Oh, they were told in the flag meeting that if you come further,
no, they were. So the announcement was made on the megaphones. Oh. Okay, because both sides initially communicated with the megaphones. Flag meetings followed up later on.
So they were told that if you make another attempt, you will open up with RT.
Yes.
Wow.
We told them that if we do not stop, we will engage you with artillery fire. So they stopped and they went back. After that, there was never any attempt by them to bypass us or to secure any of our positions.
Make Indian viewers very happy, sir. This would raise up the morale of the country, sir.
Yes, they got the message loud and clear that we meant business, and they did not attempt anything. And after that, they remained in that position, and we remained in our position thereafter, living peacefully. But one incident I want to mention here: sometime in November, maybe last week of October or early November, we were sitting. After I had my dinner, I was in my tent Arctic reading a book, and that is the time my sentry came. He said, "Sir, CO 15GR आपसे मिलने चाहते हैं." So I said, "बुलाइए उनको अंदर." The Bukhari was on to keep me warm.
So 15 Gurkha
Regiment. 1 first battalion, the 5th Gurkhas.
Yeah, so they were part of this 77 brigade. 77 brigade.
No, they were not part of 77 brigade. They were part of another formation. Okay. They said कि साहब वो CO साहब आपको मिलना चाहते हैं. I was a little surprised. It must be about 9 o'clock or so, maybe 8:39 or 9:30. I said बुलाइए अंदर, and I was in my warmers, the vest and the long johns. So I hurriedly threw up a dressing gown on myself, and that time Colonel Patania, SS Patania, Lieutenant Colonel SS Patania, he entered the thing. I said, "Good evening, sir. But here, what can I do for you, sir?" So he says, "I want to speak to the GOC." I was a little taken aback. I said, "GOC?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, sir. It will take some time for me to get the call through to Tawang, with the communication being not there. But
with GOC 5 div, sir? GOC 5 div?
Yeah, GOC 5 div only. Because at that time, we were only dealing with GOC 5 div. We had not dealing with GOC 4 corps because he was sitting in Tezpur, about 500 kilometers behind us. So
and 5 div rear headquarters was in Tawang.
That is, at that stage, there was no, 5 div was located somewhere in Tawang area at that time. Okay. So I, got the call through to him. Meanwhile, I asked him, I said, "Would you like to have a dinner or like to have a cup of coffee or a soup?" He said, "I prefer a cup of hot soup." So I was that time ironically reading the book Fall of Tawang, which was written by erstwhile GOC 4 Division, Major General Anand Patania. So he looked at it and he kept quiet. So I just asked him, I said, "Sir, are you by any chance, just on a hunch, are you by any chance related to General Patania?" Because, Patania is not a very uncommon name, but at the same time, it's a small community. He said, "I'm his son." So I said, "Oh, sir," I suddenly also stiffened. I said, "Oh." And I said, "Yes, what is the..."
So let me bring it to the notice of our viewers that Major General A.S. Patania, to whom Colonel Saxena is referring, he was GOC 4 div in the November phase of the 1960 operations after Tawang had fallen. So he, presided over the notorious scampering from Sela and the disaster of 4 div.
He was responsible for the battle from Jaswantgarh onto this thing and all. He had replaced General Ranjan Prasad. In fact, unfortunately, he was very unfortunate that he had assumed command of a retreating force rather than of an attacking force. Anyway, to get back to my story, so General Pathania had been tasked with his battalion to take out the Wangdung camp.
Yeah, Colonel Pathania. Colonel Pathania.
Colonel Pathania had got the task to remove the Chinese, take out the Chinese from the Wangdung camp, to remove them, to attack and capture the Wangdung post.
Which means cross Sumdorong-chu, go down the,
Yes,
the
yes,
Gateway Bridge.
absolutely. I will not give out the plan, but I'll just say that he had got the task to remove the Chinese from the Sumdorong-chu Wangdung camp. And he had the whole battalion, and a lot of RT assets were made available, including 244 to the 6. So I briefed him on the layout of my OP officers, my assets, and everything. And he listened to it as we were seeing. Meanwhile, the call came through to the GOC, and he spoke to him on the phone in guarded language, and he got the go ahead. So after the soup, he took leave from me, and I wished him all the best.
He got the go ahead to go ahead for the.
Yeah, he got the go ahead. He got the go ahead to attack the Chinese position. So I think last week of October or first week of November.
Okay.
Okay. And we were very excited by then. I spoke to the boys next morning. I said, we have got some operational tasks. We may have the opportunity to open a fire if required. So keep your powder dry. We had to prepare the ammunition, etc., to support the attack. My adjutant was also very happy at last. After sitting and doing nothing for 2 months, the men were also very happy. But unfortunately for us, the attack could not go through because, as luck would have it, the next 3 days we had heavy snowfall, first of the season, and it made physical movement virtually impossible, let alone carry out an operation. So he and his boys, Colonel Pathania and his boys, 15 GRI, they waited for 3 days to carry out the attack, and very reluctantly, the attack had to be called off because of the snow. And the whole scenario had changed by then. Because previously it was without snow and you were attacking in a different form. But now the snow had come, it required a different, action. So after 3 days, we had to call off the thing. That was the closest we came to taking out the Chinese from the sector.
Then history would have been different, sir. Then history,
yeah,
because that happened, there would have been all-out war, I believe.
They may not have, or may have been a localized affair. I do not know. We can only sit back and speculate. It could have been a localized affair. But yes, there would have been a limited war or a limited action would have taken place.
At least
they would have been there. But after the snow came, and that time the snow came a little early. That year the snow came a little early, as I remember. It snowed, and then snowed heavily, very intermittently, every alternate day, and all those things. So eventually, it was decided to call back. And so when the troops went back, they again stopped at my location for a cup of tea and all that. And I again hosted a cup of soup for him. And he was pretty disappointed. He said, "Yeah, I couldn't get the opportunity to redeem my father's honor." I told him, I said, that's the luck of the draw. But later on, I showed with him. He was GOC 25 Div in Rajouri. I met him. And when I walked up to him, I told him,
Colonel Pathania.
Colonel Pathania had become Major General Pathania. I think he retired as Lieutenant General. I walked up to him and told him, sir, aren't you ex-CO the thing? Yes. I told him, I said, you had stopped at the thing. He said, oh, come, great. So we caught up on that night. And whatever it happened, he of course told me what all he did, which obviously I can't share here, because some of those things could be still operationally relevant, I would say. Now, that brings me to the end of the Wangdung incident or the Sumdorong-chu incident. Till then, I would say that it was known as Sumdorong-chu incident. In fact, in the army parlance, it was known as Wangdung incident. Outside the world, for the world, it was known as Sumdorong-chu incident. It was sometime after that the whole thing came to be known as Operation Falcon.
It was ex post facto. So it was the
Yeah,
name
it was, yeah.
Falcon.
It may, if they had called it off Falcon, we at that time did not know it. Because we were so deployed so far ahead. Our focus was on the Chinese and not on what the operation was being called or what was being named. In December, middle of December, I was asked to come down because the Colonel GS, Colonel Ramtre, had been approved for brigadier and he had to move to Raiwala. So again, there was nobody to take over and I had to come back to take over. And as luck would have it, the brigade commander also, Brigadier Jajit, also 15 days later, he got posted out. And my CO, being the senior most CO, had to come down to take over from him. So in the first week of January, 244 Medium Regiment, CO and 2IC, were down in Tezpur, acting as commander and colonel of the 4 Karate Brigade, while the regiment, under the 3rd second in command, Major now late Lieutenant Colonel Rampal, was deployed opposite the Chinese. It was why I'm mentioning this that when the new commander came, new commander artillery, Brigadier Grish Bhatia, now God bless his soul, he is also no more. He came and I officiated with him for the next 6 months as Colonel GS. Because the Colonel GS who came as a relief also did not join for some administrative reasons over the next 6 months. And it was during these 6 months, some significant events took place. Of course, once he came, the CO took over, went back to the unit. And then by then the turnover of troops had started. So 12 Assam was replaced by 3-5 GR, led by Lieutenant Colonel Richard Kare, later on Lieutenant General Richard Kare. And 244 Medium was replaced by 190 Mountain Regiment.
Sorry, which one?
190 Mountain Regiment. 190 Mountain Regiment. Sorry, 169 Mountain Regiment. So we came down to Tezpur because by then the situation had stabilized. Some probably diplomatic talks were going on.
What time was that in 87? Which month would that be?
This was January. The turnover started there, and the troops who were in contact with the Chinese, that is 12 Assam and 244 Medium Regiment, were turned over by 3-5 GR, 3rd Battalion, the 5th Gurkhas, and by 169 Mountain Regiment.
This was January 87, right?
January 87. Okay. Now, between January 87 and June 87, there were a couple of things which happened, which I feel are relevant to this. First and foremost, that buffers had landed up in India from Sweden, and the earliest assets were moved straight from Bombay docks to our sector, to Tawang sector.
Okay.
And I still remember that along with the new commander, I had gone for an aerial recce because I was the one who had not only been the 2IC of 244 Medium Regiment, I was also involved in the operational planning when from July onward, when the then CCRT had briefed the army commander. So I was privy to the most of the operational plans.
Which month was this, sir?
This was in January. So commander and I, Brigadier Bhatia and I, we went for an aerial recce, helicopter recce over the district and all. Stayed one night at Tawang, and on the way back we drove back so that he could get an idea of the difficulties involved of the terrain, because he had unfortunately never served in Nifa, now Arunachal, in his life. So I recommended to him, I said, sir, I think it's better if we drive back so that at least we'll get an idea about the logistics, the difficulties involved. And that is the time when we reached Tenga. We were told that the first buffers have reached there.
So by January they had reached. By January they had reached.
First week or maybe 9th or 10th of January, the first buffer guns were there. And he said, okay, get in touch with the battery commander, and I would like to see the guns. Because they were absolutely new, everybody, by then the buffer scandal had started. So there was a keen interest in what the equipment was all about. And we met the battery commander. The battery commander was then Major Vijay Alwalia. Vijay Alwalia later on went on to become a Lieutenant General. and he retired as Army Commander Central Command. Now, Vijay had been from my squadron. He was 2 years my junior. So, after the briefing was over, he took me aside. He said, "You remember I'm from your squadron?" I said, "Of course, Vijay, I remember you." So, we got our first insight into the Bofors guns that time in Tanga, somewhere in Tanga, in the general area.
So, the road between Tanga and Tawang, was it by that time widened? Was it both sides traffic road?
The activity had started. Activity started. You see, when we had carried out the plans, once Brigadier Bhatia also came, and he had carried out the recce, and I accompanied him. There were a number of new roads, new this thing and all were planned. New areas, gun areas were selected, because now we knew what the Chinese intentions were. So the intention was to deny them any access to Tawang at all costs. And I can say with utmost confidence that had the Chinese tried to attack us in 87, it would have been a massacre.
It would have massacred.
They would have got massacred. It would have been a massacre for them. Without going into the details, operational details of the force deployed on our side, it would have been a massacre of the Chinese. They may have gained a couple of kilometers here or there, but it would have come at a tremendous cost. And it could have probably, Mr. Deng Xiaoping was the head of China that time, the chairman. He would have definitely got overthrown, because the positions were so beautifully sited and so beautifully organized and defended, and with such massive artillery support, and with the Bofors coming in, everybody was having a jump in their step, because we could hit them where it mattered the most, even there without there being, because the Chinese had the deep 30 guns, which had a range of about 11 kilometers, 11 to 12 kilometers. So whereas a Boffer had a range of 30 kilometers, and in the mountains, you have the advantage of rarefied atmosphere, so the shell tends to travel farther. And with the lie of the ground, the slope, that shell, instead of, if it misses the crest, it will go and hit somebody deep down below, which will be a couple of kilometers beyond that. So our morale was very high. I would also like to mention that at this stage, we had some troops which came from 3 corps. I will not give out from which formation, but some came, a brigade size force. Ironically, my own younger brother, that time also a major in 11th Command, he was the officiating PM of the brigade. They had come and they had carried out an exercise in Tanga area of taking the Chinese camp out, but it was only a plan which was practiced, rehearsed, but never executed. At that time, I would like to also mention that the JPC for the Boffer scandal was in place. So in June, the JPC was exposed to the capabilities of the Boffers there, and that was virtually my last involvement in the operational matters as a Colonel GS. General Sundarji himself oversaw it, and General Kerr, who was the Director General Artillery, they both were there. They had come a day earlier in a special plane from Delhi, and the next day, the joint parliamentary delegation had come. We, of course, had already gone into Tanga region to showcase the equipment and all that, and they went back very, very satisfied with the capabilities of the equipment. So that was the involvement in Op Falcon there. Sometime in June, or it was in July. In June, I must mention here that in December, when I had come down, I got the good news of being approved for promotion from Major to Lieutenant Colonel. I think it was 16th or 17th of December. And I had to wait till 25th of June to pick up my rank of Lieutenant Colonel. because the CEO also, my CEO, Colonel Nanda, had got approved for a full colonel. And till he did not become a colonel, the vacancy of lieutenant colonel in the unit would not arise. And only when he became a colonel in April, I was able to become a lieutenant colonel in this thing and all. So that was the science part of it. But in July, my CO went on leave and I was officiating CO when the new army commander, General A.N. Sharma, younger brother of Major Somnath Sharma, the first Paramveer Chakra, he came as army commander and he had to accompany, he had to go to Tawang and see the thing there. And I remember briefing him in the MESIB, which was located next to my unit. The commander and we briefed him on this thing and all, on the artillery deployment there, because he had just come in the evening. The corps commander was there, the chief of staff was there, and we were there, and then we briefed him there and then only. And next morning he then flew on to Tawang and came back. And so with that, my involvement with this thing was over.
Sir, did General Sundarji ever visit during that entire thing? Did General Sundarji ever visit from Tejpur northwards anywhere?
General Sundarji, I told you, had come for the JPC.
JPC. Otherwise, operationally during the Sumdorong-chu Wangdung,
he did come. Just let me just the battery of this thing is going down. He did come regularly, but the fact was that he was there at the corps headquarters and at the divot quarter. He did not anywhere come to where we were deployed. He did overfly us, but that was what it is.
So he came up to Tawang, up to divot headquarters.
He overflew the operational location. He overflew Langurulla position and all those things.
Oh.
But he did not actually land and meet us there.
Obviously.
And then in December, we had this exercise called Operation Checkerboard, which was basically a map exercise.
December 86.
December 87.
87.
December 87, when the plans were, rehashed depending on the new threat perception, because by then Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was to visit China. So there were certain, discussions which we were not privy to. But I remember one thing very clearly, that after Operation Checkerboard, 244 Medium Regiment, which was then earmarked to go to Ladakh, we found ourselves going to Tudev. So that is how, when I could not go to Tudev earlier as officiating colonel, yes, I ended up as 2IC. Later on, I took over command of my 244 regiment in Tudev. Well, that's a different
area. So which area was that, sir? Tudev AOR by that time?
Tudev, we were deployed at 3-4 places. One of them was, our headquarters was at Lekapani, and our regiment was at the air maintained garrisons. Now, of course, they are no longer air maintained. They were at Manchuka and Tudev. And then I was also involved in the operational scenario in Upper Subansari Valley, which is now in area of interest, that is south of Wangdung, where the Chinese have recently क्या अभी एक साल plus हो गया, the BJP MLA had said they have constructed a village of 100 districts. At that time, the Chinese had come for the umpteenth time to Wangdung to occupy the position. But that's a different story.
So, viewers, you have heard a scintillating story. It's story is maybe the misnomer. It is live history from a combatant who was in a pivotal position as Colonel G, officiating Colonel G as a corps artillery, and then 2IC of a regiment which was tasked to provide direct fire support to the battalion, which was absolutely back line deployment. We have had a lot of mythologies passing as history on this particular episode, like in many other episodes of India-China affairs. On behalf of Sandy Wars, it has been our duty and our task to bring you the truth. And we hope that we have been able to bring you the truth this time also, and it's appreciated. On behalf of all of you, I will thank Colonel Pradeep Saxena for his invaluable inputs and the service he has put in for the country, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Okay, Sandeep, I'll just conclude by some trivia. That is, at no stage there was a territorial dispute between Tibet and India. Have you understood? At
Sir.
no stage in the history has there been a territorial dispute between Tibet and India. Why I'm mentioning this is that even before the British rule, even before the Mughals, even before them, there was never any territorial dispute between Tibet and India. The territorial dispute has only arisen between India and Tibet region post 1959 when the Chinese have occupied Tibet. So whatever dispute the Chinese today claim, including calling Arunachal as lower Tibet, is all a figment of imagination post 1959. It did not exist ever there. Arunachal was not carved out, but was separate, demarcated because there was no boundary between Tibet and India. So it was decided by the British to create a clear-cut boundary between Tibet and India. And that unfortunately has become the bane of contention, the bone of contention between China and India because they have occupied Tibet illegally. Otherwise, Tibet and India have never had any dispute, territorial dispute.
Thank you.
I thank you for having me on it,
sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me on your show. I'm really honored. I hope it's been useful to you.
The privilege is ours, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jahan.